The courtroom doors swing open and all eyes fixate on the lone figure striding to the podium. Neal Katyal, arguably the most skilled appellate lawyer of his generation, adjusts his tie and readies his notes. On the opposite side, Donald Trump, the former president, looms in every headline, every rally, every controversy he ever touched. But today the battle is no campaign speech, no rally crowd. This is a fight over power, law, and the very limits of a president's authority. The case they're battling over could reshape America's future far more than any election. It started quietly. While most of the nation's attention was fixated on foreign wars, social media wars, and election wars, the true storm was gathering in the courtroom. Trump, returning to the limelight in relentless fashion, had issued sweeping tariffs under his previous administration. In effect, he claimed the power to impose global import taxes to reshape trade, to challenge Congress's Article 1 monopoly over taxes and tariffs. A coalition of small businesses and states pushed back. Neal Katyal stepped into the fray for the plaintiffs, arguing that the president had overreached. The Constitution gave Congress, not the White House, the power to impose burdens on trade. Katyal had already built a career dismantling aggressive executive claims, arguing numerous Supreme Court cases, defending the Affordable Care Act, and preserving democratic guardrails. He understood what was at stake, not just the outcome of this case, but the future of American self-government. Trump's side responded with his typical flourish, bold tweets, media blitzes, charges against deep state actors, the whole arsenal. But the legal stage allowed no sound bites. What happened in that courtroom matters because it asks the question, can a president rewrite the rules of the economy unilaterally? Katyal answered, no, and now America is watching. A federal appeals court struck down most of Trump's sweeping tariffs, calling them beyond the authority delegated to the president. Democracy now. +2, The Washington Post. +2. That decision didn't just rebuke Trump as policy, it sent a message. Even the most powerful man in Washington can be checked. But the story behind the headlines is richer than a simple victory or defeat. Neal Katyal, born to immigrant parents in Chicago, rose from Dartmouth and Yale law to argue dozens of Supreme Court cases. The Times of India +1 his clients include small businesses, states, and corporations who argue the executive may not simply leapfrog Congress whenever convenient. Trump, on the other hand, someone who reshaped what politics looks like, even gradually what power looks like with his base, his rallies, his disregard for convention. The clash is historic because it spoke two visions of America, one anchored in checks and balances, the other in bold executive action. Imagine a president flush with popular mandate, launching tariffs in the name of national emergency, using a 1977 law previously reserved for sanctions to justify sweeping import duties. That was Trump's move. In the courtroom, a judge asked, did Congress ever intend to give the president unlimited tariff-making power under that statute? The answer, emphatically, no. Democracy now. When the appeals court responded, its language echoed with concern. The statute neither mentions tariffs nor procedural safeguards for such sweeping power. The ruling landed as a constitutional earthquake. For Trump supporters, the decision felt like a betrayal. The man of the people fighting global elites being told he overstepped. For opponents, it felt like the triumph of constitutional order. For the rest of Americans who don't follow court filings, the implications are vast. If a president can tax via emergency powers, what stops the next president from reordering entire sectors of the economy with a stroke? The case isn't peripheral, it touches each citizen's wallet, each business contract, each job dependent on trade. Katyal, at the podium, didn't raise his voice. He didn't need drama. His argument was surgical. The Constitution vests the power of the purse in Congress, Articles of Confederation notwithstanding. He quoted history, precedent, and logic that tariffs, duties, and taxes have long been congressional territory. The judge, as questioning, suggested skepticism. Why did the statute as drafters omit mention of tariffs? What precedent allowed this? The courtroom transcript crackled with tension. By August 29, 2025, the court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs, cafc.uscourts.gov, +1 behind the scenes. Trump's team began preparing for a Supreme Court review. They knew this wasn't merely one case sit, was a flashpoint. If the Supreme Court, sometime soon, sided with the president, the balance of power between the branches could shift dramatically. Trump sensed opportunity. In interviews, he floated the possibility of attending arguments in person, unprecedented for a former president whose policies are at stake. Liberty Justice Center Katyal too prepared. His team worked overtime, anticipating not just appellate arguments, but the politics swirling beyond the courtroom, the headlines, the blogs, the echo chambers. This is where the drama intensifies. Because this case is more than lit's narrative. For Trump, the narrative is strength, action, reclaiming America's economy. Akuda, the narrative is democracy, restraint, rule of law. At every turn, the public consumes the soundbites, but only in this courtroom do the real lines get drawn. The tariffs had real victims, small businesses who felt squeezed, consumers who paid the hidden cost, and states whose budgets strain under economic shifts. Katyal spoke for them. Trump responded on social platforms, promising to win big and break the system. But in the arc of this battle, one moment stands out. As Katyal closed his argument, he paused before the justices and said, "We may live in an age of crisis, but the Constitution doesn't pause for emergencies." The room held its breath. Outside, cameras snapped. That line went viral almost instantly. Commentary exploded about whether Trump's economic muscle was constitutional or merely political performance. The next morning, news feeds were filled with, "Is the president a king?" And "Is the Constitution still relevant?" For viewers glued to their screens, the battle was no longer academic, it was existential. The stakes escalate. If the Supreme Court lets Trump retain tariff authority, future presidents could levy sweeping taxes, bypass Congress, reshape industries at will. The court backs Katyal's view. The executive's power stays more constrained, preserving the dynamic of checks and balances. For ordinary Americans, it might mean the difference between stability and drift, between rule of law and rule of one. The tension pulses through every market reaction, every business coping with global supply chain shifts, every headline about trade wars. Katyal, lean and focused, has seen this script before. He helped salvage the ACA. He helped defend voting rights. He helped argue separation of powers. Trump, boisterous and unpredictable views, legal setbacks as political fodder. After the appellate decision, he took to social media to lambast paper-pushing judges and reaffirmed his claim of unlimited power. What followed was a volley of commentary, punditry, speculation. But inside the corridors of law, the quiet gears of power were turning. Now, as the case approaches the Supreme Court, the world watches differently. America's allies observe whether the notions of executive authority will hold or crumble. Markets tremble at the idea of unchecked tariffs. Businesses re-examine supply chains. Workers wonder, will my job depend on laws passed by Congress or on decisions made in secret by the White House? Katyal's voice echoes. The plight of individuals matters. Constitutional structure matters. Trump's voice echoes. We'll win fast, restart America. Impose our will in living rooms across the country. Viewers scroll headlines. Trump versus Katyal. Constitutional battle. They debate, they click, they watch. And that matters. Because TV ratings, online views, comment sections, they fuel the narrative. Katyal knows that while the justices deliberate, public opinion shapes the backdrop. Trump knows that rallies and social posts fuel his brand. The video you are watching in this moment is part of that larger story. Consider this. One president, already polarizing the globe, now fights a legal battle that could tilt America's future. One lawyer, quietened only by his resolve, stands in defense of structural limits on power. The stakes: the U.S. Constitution, the economy, global trade, individual rights. but also what it means to be free, to be governed by law, not by force. When that gavel falls, someone will claim victory. Will it be the former president who promised to take back America? Or the attorney who said some powers are not reset by elections? The answer will appear in legal texts, but the impact will resonate far beyond the courtroom. Every business model, every import contract, every presidential action for years to come may trace back to that day.